and welcome to another wonderful and exciting episode of Africa Update on Trust TV, where we bring you happenings and updates of what's happening on the great black continent, Africa. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back with more. Welcome back. It's Africa Update here on Trust TV, and I'm your host, Chiamaka Nwafo. Now we'll start with South Africa, where this week we'll be telling you that they've sworn in lawmakers on Friday, June 14th in Cape Town. Now, there were two parts of the session, the parliamentary session, for the first part seeing lawmakers take the oath of office, and the second part for the voting of the president and the vice president. Here's more from Africa News.
South African lawmakers were beginning to be sworn in on Friday in Cape Town. The Chief Justice Raymond Zondo oversaw the first part of the parliamentary session, during which lawmakers took the oath of office. In the second part of the session, parliamentarians elect the president and the vice president. Cyril Ramaphosa is seeking a second term as leader of Africa's most industrialized economy, but his African National Congress party, ANC, has been weakened after losing its long-held majority in an election last month. 18 political parties are represented in the South African parliament for this five-year term, from the ANC with 159 seats to the PAC, the Good Party and the UAT Party with 1 seat each. MK Party, which ended third in the May 29th poll, has decided not to attend the inaugural session of Parliament, alleging there was election rigging by the Independent Electoral Commission. This session will reveal the unity government the ANC has formed. Late Thursday, the party said it had a coalition agreement in principle with the DA party and smaller groups.
Now we'll move over to Sudan, where in the North Darfur state, displaced people and doctors say the paramilitary rapid support forces are attacking hospitals and camps in the capital El Fasher. Meanwhile, non-profit groups say the world is paying little attention as the city that was supposed to be a haven for those forced out of their homes by war is being torn apart. VOA's Henry Wilkins has the story.
El Fasher, the capital city of North Darfur state, was supposed to be safe. About 800,000 people displaced by fighting and alleged ethnic cleansing in the surrounding Darfur countryside have fled here hoping to find refuge. But since mid-April, Al Fasher too has become a war zone. Refugee camps have been caught in the crossfire and even shelled as the Sudanese military battles the paramilitary rapid support forces for control of the city. More than 1,200 have been killed, says Doctors Without Borders. From inside El Fasher, Adam Rojal, a spokesperson for a local non-profit helping Darfur's displaced, told VOA that people here don't care about the warring sides. They just want the fighting to stop.
They are not patriots because they're fighting for their own interests. The only loser is the society of Sudan, especially the people in Darfur. People have lost everything, even the basic needs of human life like food, water, shelter, and medicine. Words can't describe how serious this crisis is.
Claire Nicolette works with the non-profit Doctors Without Borders, which operates medical facilities in El Fasher. She said one of its maternity wards was shelled, as well as the main surgical hospital.
The roof fall down on babies that were inside the hospital, and we had to close down after the death of these two children. Surgical hospital, I can say, which is receiving all the wounded at the moment, has been touched 4 times now in 10 days.
Nicolette said calls from the UN, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and other members of the international community to end the fighting in El Fasher have gone unheeded. She says the situation is only getting worse and that the violence is indiscriminate.
We hear about drones now, we hear about snipers, so we just see that the situation is just deteriorating over and over. It's kind of full war inside the city, so unfortunately there is no protection of civilians, no protection of health structures whatsoever. That's the reality.
Rojal says the fighting has prevented people from leaving the city and aid groups from delivering food to the starving within its borders.
In reality, most families live in dire conditions, myself included. because we don't get our share of the World Food Program aid due to the poor security conditions and the blockade.
Every day, he has been desperately sending pictures of malnourished children in El Fasher to the international press to try to get the world's attention. Non-profits have complained about the unusually low donations for the Sudan crisis, in part because of the Ukraine and Gaza wars, while human rights groups have criticised the UN and African Union for not doing enough. Meanwhile, El Fasher continues to be ripped apart.
Still in Sudan, the United Nations Security Council on Thursday adopted a resolution demanding that Sudan's paramilitary force immediately halt the siege of the only capital in the vast western region of Darfur. The region, which is not controlled by the force, is one where more than 1 million people are reportedly trapped. The British-sponsored resolution, which is approved by a vote of 14-0, with Russia abstaining, also calls on the paramilitary rapid support force and Sudanese military to seek an immediate cessation of hostilities, leading to an end to their more than year-long war. Sudan's army on Friday said it had killed Ali Yaqub Gilbril, a senior commander for the paramilitary rapid support forces, which was under U.S. sanctions during a battle on the besieged North Darfur city of Al Fasher. Gilbril was the leading commander for the RSF in Al Fasher, the last major city in the Darfur region of Sudan, and the paramilitary force does not control. The army said in a statement, Yaqub was killed as an RSF attack was thwarted early Friday by its troops and allied joint forces fighting alongside a reference to non-Arab former rebel groups from Darfur that are aligned with the army. And over to health and environment matters. The Nile River is the second longest river in the world. It provides crucial resources to 11 countries, including South Sudan, the world's youngest nation. As dawn breaks each day over the Nile, its waters carry a silent plea at the center of a 21st century environmental challenge. Environmental experts predict that more frequent and intense heat waves could cut the Nile's flow by 75%, spike conflicts over water resources and food insecurity, and heighten health risks related to inadequate water supply and sanitation. Joseph Africano Bertel, South Sudan's Undersecretary of the Ministry of Environment and Forestry Management, explained the importance that water quality has for those who live and work near the banks of the Nile. Community Action Against Plastic Waste is a youth-driven non-governmental organization. Louet, the organization's founder, said this once majestic, ancient lifeline for civilizations is now facing a severe environmental threat. Hopefully something can be done about the River Nile. Still in helping the world, traditional cooking fuels and technologies are among the major sources of household air pollution in sub-Saharan Africa, with severe health consequences for the population, according to the World Bank. Now, an initiative to promote climate-friendly cooking in the region is introducing stoves that use less charcoal and firewood to improve air quality. Juma Majanga reports from Nakuru, Kenya.
At a local market in Nakuru, a town in Kenya's Rift Valley region, Josephine Abongo is busy attending to customers at her cook stoves shop. Abongo produces and sells clay-molded energy-saving stoves that she says are a great improvement to the open-fire cooking technology used in most rural homes in Kenya.
So what we are doing is to bring back the traditional technology, but in an improved way, in a digital way, so that it can be used even in urban homes. That way we will save trees, we will save the environment, and we will save our health. We will also save economically, because the economy is currently bad and people don't have money.
The project is being implemented by Practical Action, a development-focused non-governmental organization.
I think it's becoming a talk that we are moving the discussion towards ensuring that our local people transit from the traditional cooking solutions to the new cooking solutions that save their lives.
Health experts say cooking smoke is a major health risk, especially to rural populations in sub-Saharan Africa. Data from Kenya's Ministry of Health estimates that 21,500 premature deaths occur each year as a result of indoor air pollution triggered by cooking.
The use of firewood, as we know, when it burns, that smoke is direct. It's worse than even when you smoke because there is a filter. This is the primary use of the smoke. which has a lot of effect in the lungs.
Unlike traditional stoves, the improved devices are designed so the flame is aimed directly at the cooking pot to avoid wasting heat. They also have just one opening for charcoal and firewood instead of 3. And they are constructed with a thick liner made from a special type of clay for heat conservation. All these factors make the stoves up to 40% more efficient, reducing consumption of firewood and charcoal. Practical Action says around 200,000 improved cook stoves have been sold by more than 300 trained entrepreneurs like Abongo. Kagoto Danji Vocational Training Center is one institution that has adopted the cleaner cooking technology. Principal Malaki Manasseh says the move has cut costs for the institution.
We used to have a full-ton lorry of firewood a term, but the way I've implemented it, I've saved almost 80% of that, which is a plus for us.
Last year's International Energy Agency annual conference in Nairobi called for an acceleration of universal access to cleaner cooking through government incentives and subsidies. Practical Action's Team Mwangi says funding remains a major problem for African countries.
Well, we have very good policies, but in terms of funding, then it needs to match the good policies that we have in there.
Kenya aims to achieve 100% access to clean cooking by 2028, in line with UN Sustainable Development Goals.
A Still Africa update, and when we return from the break, we'll tell you what's happening in business and in sports on the African continent. Please don't go nowhere. Welcome back to Africa Update right here on Trust TV. Now, the G7 summit opened Thursday, June 13th in Italy, and a session focused on investment and infrastructure projects in Africa took place. The Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment PGI program was high on the agenda. Here is more from Africa News.
The G7 summit opened Thursday in Italy. A session focused on investment and infrastructure projects in Africa. The Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment PGI program was high on the agenda.
We wanted to create an alternative for this infrastructure investment. And it is not only the financial firepower that is impressive, but PGI is sustainable. It's good for the planet, but it's also good for the country's finances, if I may say so. And this combination makes our offer different to others. Important is that we want to bring long-lasting benefits to the local economy of our partners.
Italy holds this year the rotating presidency of the forum, which ends Saturday. Italian Premier Giorgia Meloni set as priority developing ties with Africa. Several leaders from the continent have been invited.
Now, 39 Ugandan objects have returned home after over a century away. The University of Cambridge is loaning the traditional artifacts to the East African country for an initial period of 3 years. Here's more on the story from Africa News.
After over a century away, 39 Ugandan objects have returned home. The University of Cambridge is loaning the traditional artifacts to the East African country for an initial period of 3 years. But what meaning can these objects, which range from tribal regalia to delicate pottery, hold now for the people who carved them so many years ago?
These objects have been away from home for so long. Now is the time that they come back, and it's the time to research the history of these objects, to research their contemporary significance, and to help make decisions about their future. Really importantly, this is research that could be done in Cambridge, but it shouldn't be done in Cambridge. It should be done here, and it should be led by Ugandan people.
Cambridge acquired most Ugandan artifacts as donations from private collections, and many were given by an Anglican missionary active in Uganda after the nation was made a British protectorate in 1894.
There was a lot of plundering Africa, and so Africa being plundered, it's not that they only took gold, they took gold and associated heritage. And so a part of the gold, I would say, that they removed from Africa is the cultural heritage, because they were spreading the gospel of Christ, and so they did not want anything associated with traditions.
The items which have returned were selected by Ugandan curators. Salome Nabukalu was particularly interested in objects from the Buganda kingdom, the kingdom of the Bagandas.
I'm in Uganda. We are a variety of objects they've brought for Baganda, and I've seen and I'll be seeing these objects, most especially Omulamula, Damula for the Katikiro. That is the most fascinating object I've seen.
These items represent a small fraction of about 1,500 Ugandan ethnographic objects that the British University owns. The African Union aims to have a common policy on the return of looted cultural property.
As Muslims worldwide prepare for celebrate Eid al-Adha, Senegal's locally bred star sheep had their moment to shine. Ladoum sheep that can fetch tens of thousands of dollars live a life of luxury in special parlors where they're massaged, groomed and fed syringes full of vitamins. Now this sheep will not be, slaughtered for Salah as other sheep would be. More from African News.
A booming sheep business in Senegal. This unique type of sheep in Senegal is attracting more attention, especially among breeders. Celebrated for their gleaming white fur and symmetrical horns, the animal is most often bought for prestige breeding and beauty contests and not to be eaten. Ladoum sheep that can fetch tens of thousands of dollars live a life of luxury in special parlors where they are massaged, groomed and fed syringes full of vitamins. It's an excellent business and a passion. As I always say, when you are stressed because of work or because of whatever, when you come here and see the sheep, you are calm. The majestic-looking Ladoum can weigh up to 180 kilograms, and it has made this coastal West African nation famous among breeders. He's from an excellent family. His father was named Capital, who was a well-known champion in the breeding world. His mother is Yassine Safar. She's still alive, a big champion, and her father was called Major. Her grandfather was Batonier, the first sheep to reach a height of 1.2 meters. Mustafa Sek takes care of his family's sheep, which his father has been raising since he entered the breeding business in 1992. His prince Ladoum is named Sonko after the country's new prime minister. When he was born, it was the moment when we had a lot of hopes, and that was because of our prime minister, Ousmane Sonko. We saw that he was a true patriot, a warrior, someone who is strong. So this was when Sonko the sheep was born. Very few people in Senegal can afford a Ladoum. Worth up to $70,000, the sheep is the ultimate symbol of social prestige in a country where the GDP per capita does not exceed $1,600.
Now, children across Africa are competing for a spot in the finals of the African Spelling Bee, which will be held in Abuja, Nigeria in December of 2024. We caught up, or rather VOA caught up with one hopeful speller at the recent South African regional finals. Zahir Kasim reports for the VOA.
At 10 years old, Zuhaira Hassan has already many other trophies to her credit, but there's one that holds a special place in her heart, her Spelling Bee trophy.
Because it's like an achievement to win something like this, and it's also quite big. That's what's something nice about it. And looking at it, it's just like it makes me feel proud because I made it somewhere, at least in the spelling bee.
If Zuhaira and her brother Zaim Hassan can win the regional round, they will advance to the national competition later this year. That will determine who represents South Africa at the African Spelling Bee to be held in Abuja, Nigeria, in December. Organizers of the African Spelling Bee say that they were inspired by the US Spelling Bee that started in 1925 and wanted to create an African version to encourage reading and spelling in the continent.
Ultimately, we've seen over the years the child that reads the most wins. It's there's luck plays some part in the word. If you know a word, you know a word. But what we've seen especially over the last few years is the best readers win, and those who read widely.
Please spell equity.
Q-U-I-T.
Sorry, what was the last letter?
T.
T. Do you want to try that again?
I-T-E.
Very close, unlucky. It's actually a Y at the end, so it's E-Q-U-I-T-Y. Yeah.
Next up is Zuhaira to qualify into today's top 10.
Please spell quality.
Q-U-A-L-I-T-Y.
Thank you.
Nice, 2 out of 2.
As the day progresses, only a few competitors remain. Math teacher Helen Carter says that the spelling bee is important because it recognizes kids' excellence in things other than sports.
They're the kids who don't thrive in sports, who sit in the library at break and they read, and after school what they want to do is read books. And this is a chance where they can really prove their worth and something that they're strong at and that they're passionate about.
Now it's time to reveal the winner.
And then between Zuhaira and George, we had to count back all the stuff. They were tied throughout the competition, except for one round where George got 1 point more than Zuhaira.
1 point made all the difference. Fortunately for Zuhaira, her status among the top 3 is still good enough to qualify her for the national competition. Zaire Kassem for VOA News, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And finally, FIFA President Gianni Infantino visited Zambia to unveil the new FIFA-sponsored Football Association of Zambia Accommodation Center in Lusaka. Africa News tells us more.
FIFA President Gianni Infantino made his maiden visit to Zambia on Thursday, where he launched the FIFA-funded Football Association of Zambia Accommodation Center in Lusaka. Infantino also paid his respects to the victims of the 1993 Gabon air disaster at the memorial site in Lusaka, as well as meeting Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema and Elvis Nkando from the Ministry of Youth, Sport and Arts on Wednesday evening.
And that's our package for you this week on Africa Update. I hope you've learned something new and you've been educated. So we'll see you same time next week. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms and on our YouTube live stream. I am Chiamaka Mwafo. Bye for now.